If you've been scrolling through endless listings, watching video after video, and you still feel stuck on whether a stick welder is the right tool for your garage, you're not alone. I've been in that exact spot, trying to weigh the promise of a simple, no-frills machine against the fear of spending money on something that will sit idle in the corner. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. In this review, I'm going to break down the Welder Maxstar 161S series so you can decide if it actually fits your day-to-day projects or if you should keep looking. First, let's talk about the hesitation that most people feel before buying any welder. Stick welding, also known as SMAW, is often pitched as the entry point for beginners because the equipment itself is straightforward. Just plug it in, pick a stick, and you're welding. The flip side is that the learning curve is hidden in the choice of electrode, the need for a clean joint, and the fact that you're limited to the positions the stick can handle. If you end up with a machine that can't supply enough amperage for the thickness you need, or one that's too finicky for outdoor use, you'll quickly regret the purchase. That's why it matters to look beyond the headline specs and see what the Maxstar actually delivers when you're out in the shop or on a job site. The Welder Maxstar 161S is a 240-volt stick welder, which means it's designed to run off a standard residential 3-phase service or a dedicated 240-volt circuit in a garage. That alone tells you a lot about the intended user. If you already have a 240-volt outlet, you're set up for a decent amount of power without having to run a generator or upgrade your electrical panel. For someone who only has a typical 120-volt household outlet, this unit would be a mismatch. You'd need to install a new circuit or look for a lower voltage model. That's one hidden trade-off that catches people off guard. Now, who should buy this machine? Think about the type of work you do on a regular basis. If you're a hobbyist who spends a weekend a month fixing rusted garden fences, welding together a small steel frame for a workbench, or touching up a few spots on an old pickup truck, the Maxstar provides just enough horsepower to melt through inch-mild steel without getting bogged down. The 240-volt input translates into a stable arc that's forgiving when you're still learning to maintain the right travel speed. The fact that it's made in the United States also gives a little peace of mind about component quality and serviceability. Miller's domestic manufacturing means you can more easily find replacement parts or get advice from local distributors. If you're a small shop owner who does occasional structural repairs, this welder can also fit into a modest production line. You can run a 2mm to 6mm electrode comfortably, and the output is strong enough to handle spot welding a metal bracket to a chassis without having to constantly adjust the knob. The Maxstar's control knob is simple. You dial in the amperage, hook up the ground, and you're ready. That simplicity is a real strength when you're juggling multiple tasks and don't want to be staring at a digital readout for every joint. On the other side of the coin, skip this unit if your projects demand more than occasional stick work. If you need to weld thin sheet metal for automotive body panels, you'll quickly discover that a stick welder isn't the most efficient tool. Its larger electrode size tends to burn through thin material, forcing you to use a lower amperage and ending up with a weak joint. Likewise, if you're looking for a multi-process machine that can switch between MIG, TIG, and stick on the fly, the Maxstar won't satisfy that need. It's a single-process device, and while it does its job well, it won't replace a more versatile inverter-based system. Let's get into some practical strengths that become evident once you've got the Maxstar in your hands. First, the welder's duty cycle is respectable for its class. When you dial in a mid-range setting, say around 150 amps, you can run for about 10 minutes before the unit needs a short cooldown. That window is plenty for most hobby projects where you're welding a few joints and then taking a breather. Second, the transformer-type design gives the machine a rugged feel. There's no delicate electronics that get fried if you accidentally hit the power switch while the arc is live. I've seen a few owners mention that the unit can survive a rougher workshop environment, and that durability is a genuine advantage when you're moving the welder from a garage bench to an outdoor job site. A practical weakness that shows up in real-world use is weight. The Maxstar isn't a portable torch you can sling over your shoulder for a day-long roof repair. It sits on a sturdy steel base that adds stability but also makes it a bit heavier than an inverter.